This episode is sponsored by Just Thrive. Save 20% off a 9-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic and Just Calm when you go to justthrivehealth.com and use promo code WELCOME. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. Guys, this is going to be a one-off special episode, and let me tell you the whole backstory of why we're here and what we're doing today. Many times when you have a podcast that is inexplicably popular as my own, people come and they want to promote their product, and I always say no, because one of the beautiful things about having the career that I do is that I never have to talk to anyone that I don't want to. It is a blessing. I fight to protect it tooth and nail. And then I got approached about a product that is about something that I've been passionate about and talking about for years, for a very long time, which is probiotics. You can see the tweets on the screen. I've been tweeting about this for a very, very long time. When I was a kid, every single time I ate food, I had some discomfort. This, for my immigrant family, was, of course, a source of constant tension. They took me from doctor to doctor. This one doctor told me I swallow too much air when I eat. I had to get, I don't remember if it was an endoscopy or colonoscopy, but I was put out and camera went in somewhere. They tried changing my food. I'm eating my Lanta every day. They didn't really have an answer. Nothing seemed to work. And when you're growing up with this as your normal, you think this is just my lot in life. This is just how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Then about 20 years ago, I had a coworker and he had Crohn's, which I'd never heard of before. And at that time, Crohn's it's not great now, but it was really, really bad. It's basically malnourished. You're getting a colostomy bag. They're going to take up pieces of your intestine, shorten lifespan, just the works. It was horrific. And he taught me about probiotics. It helped him out a lot. And if it had been anyone else, any of this kind of woo-woo stuff, I'm not hearing it. It's going to be in one ear and out the other. But since this is someone who had a diagnosed medical condition, which was a much more severe thing than I had, I'm like, let me try it. And it worked almost immediately. And when I tell you, if this is something that sounds familiar to you, if this is something you've been struggling and you think, okay, this is just how I am, to find out you don't have to live like this is nothing short of miraculous. It's just wonderful that I don't have to have an adversarial relationship with food, that every time I eat, I don't have to worry about being uncomfortable or worse. My nephew recently just got diagnosed with Crohn's, Lucas. We could see his pictures on the screen. And I was ready to jump off a bridge when I learned about this. My sister told me in the last 20 years, the treatment for Crohn's and other bowel issues has gotten so much better. Now it's basically at a point where it's almost like having diabetes. He has to eat certain things, not eat certain things, but he's not going to have surgery. He can have a full thriving life, run marathons, all that other good stuff that, people can do nowadays. So I'm really excited to talk about this at length because this is something that I've been talking about for a very long time. We have with us Tina Anderson, who is the CEO of Just Thrive. You can find her products at justthrivehealth.com. Was everything I was saying somewhat accurate medically?
Absolutely, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry that you went through that.
It was, and it didn't help, by the way, that, because I was so skinny as a kid, that they kept making me eat cereal every morning with the lactose. But that was a whole other story. And my mom still feels very guilty, as she should. Can you talk, let's just start from the beginning. So can you explain to people what probiotics are?
Yes. So probiotics are the friendly bacteria, and we have this gut microbiome, and it needs friendly bacteria. It's this ecosystem of good bacteria and bad bacteria. So it's basically friendly bacteria that confers a benefit onto a host. Actually, the definition is a live microorganism that confers a benefit onto the host, which is the body.
Where do these microorganisms come from?
Well, we are inoculated with our probiotics or our microorganisms through childbirth. So vaginal childbirth, close skin to skin contact, breastfeeding. And this is why we're seeing this uprise of conditions, health conditions, because there's an increase in cesarean births. People aren't getting inoculated. There's many reasons that we could go into later about why people are struggling with gut issues. But basically, we are supposed to get our microbiome. We are inoculated with our organisms through childbirth, vaginal childbirth, close skin-to-skin contact as a newborn, and breastfeeding. We really weren't meant to get them, or we didn't necessarily get them from food or anything like that. We were getting them through childbirth.
So is this the kind of thing where it's been, because the paleo diet is something, and the paleo lifestyle is something people talk about a lot. And I worked on a book with that called The Paleo Manifesto with my buddy John Durant. And one of the points they make is, for kids, for example, if you allow the kids to play in the dirt, they're going to build up an immunity to diseases because that's how naturally things develop, right? So is it the same kind of thing where if you try to keep things as sterile as possible, maybe that's positive in the short term, but you're also losing out on the positive microorganisms?
Absolutely. Less than 1% of bacteria is actually harmful. The overwhelming majority of bacteria is actually beneficial. Not only is it beneficial, it's critical to our health. We are 10 times more bacteria than we are human cells. And that's really hard for people to wrap their head around, that we have 10 times more bacterial cells than we have human cells. So it's really our bacteria that is dictating our health. And we are living in this very antibacterial world, from antibacterial hand soaps and hand sanitizers to Lysol and bleach products that are killing all of the organisms that we want the dirt, exactly like John said. We need the dirt, and that's actually where our ancestors evolved getting these bacteria after childbirth. We would get them from the soil. So we would get them from the soil. We would eat our ancestors would eat roots and tubers off the land, and then those roots and tubers were teeming with this really beneficial bacteria, and that's where we would support our gut health. Unfortunately, in the world we live in now, we just don't have access to these bacteria that we need. We're not getting those bacterial organisms from the foods that we're eating because our soil is depleted of nutrients. It's overfarmed and contaminated with pesticides and all of those types of things.
So my understanding is this is something that is personal to you as well. Like you had to go through some issues with your health. Is that correct?
No, actually, I did not have any issues with my health. So no.
You're lucky.
Yeah, I know. I'm very lucky. Yeah, no, we got into this business because we were in the pharmaceutical business.
Okay.
My husband and I saw a lot of the overprescribing of medication. We saw the abuses in the pharmaceutical industry, and it just wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted to do our life's work. We're pretty deep thinkers. We read a lot of Wayne Dyer, Norman Vincent Peale, and the message that kept getting sent to us is we're not doing our life's work. And so we left our very, wonderful jobs in that field, our roles in that field, and we took our life savings and started researching about natural health and wellness. And we just saw in pharmaceutical, the whole emphasis was on treating symptoms and putting a Band-Aid on things. You never go to the doctor and they tell you that you have a disease of some sort and they're like, here's a medicine for it. There's never a discussion about how did this happen? What's the root cause of it? And we wanted to get into a place where we were talking about the root cause of an issue and getting to the bottom of an issue. And so that's kind of how our journey evolved. We decided to go into this, and we were able to find we were able to license these exclusive strains out of London University, and we just dove into gut health.
So your company's been around for a long time. So,
10 years, yeah.
Yeah, so you got on board this ship at a fairly early time. So how did you come to this understanding this is something that would be so important and that would benefit so many people?
Yeah, we did. We came early on, but we were still very much disruptors in the space because the overwhelming majority of probiotics on the market are made up of these certain types of strains, lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. Again, we could go into that later, but our strains were different. They were bacillus spore-based probiotics, and this was a very different type of application of probiotics. So a very different way that we were going to administer these, probiotics. And so we surrounded ourselves with very, very smart people, a naturopath physician, a microbiologist, and we were able to license these strains, these very, very unique strains. And it was really an uphill battle because everyone had thought, probiotics to be good needed to be in the refrigerator, and probiotics, you needed a lactobacillus and bifidobacterium type of probiotic. But what we found out is that those were actually signs of a weak probiotic because they had difficulty. If you think about it, if a probiotic can't withstand the room temperature of the store shelf, how in the world would it ever survive your body temperature, which is 98.6? And so we saw that, a lot of these probiotics really weren't working. They were maybe providing some relief. Some people were getting some relief, but they weren't making a true change. And we were very passionate about getting to the root cause of the issue, getting to the root cause of what is causing this issue and how do we fix that.
Where'd you grow up?
Chicago area.
The root cause. Okay. She's trying to say root.
Root, sorry.
Wait, so explain this, because this is the kind of thing where you hear the word probiotic, right? And people do not have the information to distinguish between one product or another, because the idea is like it's all basically interchangeable. So you're explaining to me that there are significant differences between the different brands. Can you kind of break down what you were just referring to?
Yes. So we work with a type of probiotic strain called spores. And they're not mushroom spores, but they're an endospore. And they have this endospore shell around themselves. And that allows it to survive the gastric system. So the biggest problem with probiotics on the market is they have difficulty surviving the stomach acid. The stomach acid is meant to be the gastric barrier. If you touch, your finger touches it, it'll burn your skin. It's so acidic. And so our probiotics actually survive that. And it's not because we've engineered them anyway. They actually naturally survive. Remember, we were talking about the soil. These are the same type of bacteria that you're going to find in the soil our ancestors used to find. In fact, if we go to tribes in like Papua New Guinea tribe, you would eat off the land and you would get these type of bacillus spore-based bacteria. The other type of probiotics that you'll find on the market are called lactobacillus and bifidobacterium strains. And many of those are fine, especially those that are particularly studied, like one particular strain. But what we're seeing in the industry is, in America, more is better. So they're taking probiotics with like 15 different strains and they're growing them all together, and we don't know what's happening in the vat. These are live microorganisms. You're throwing them in a vat, and one could be taking over another strain. Two strains could come together and create a whole new strain that's not in there. And this has been studied. UC Davis did a study on this about 10 or so years ago, showing that probiotics that are on the shelf are only 1 in 16 actually met label claims, because that's what's happening with these 15 different strains. They're all competing with each other.
And they're dynamic organisms on a micro level. So of course they're going to be interacting.
Exactly. And so what we do, which is really different, and not only do we not work with the lactobacillus bifidobacterium strains for the most part, but we are working with spore-based because we know they survive. The biggest thing we need to do with a probiotic is take one that survives the gastric system. And the spores have that ability, because they have that shell around themselves, to get to the intestines. When they get there, they take their shell off and they go into their live vegetative cell state, and they stay there for about 21 to 28 days, where the other types of probiotics on the market that you'll see are just passing through, similar to like how food passes through. So it's a very, very effective, and you're seeing great changes in there. And they are live microorganisms, and you have to not assume their function. You have to study it. And one of the biggest differences with what we did when we came into this industry is, I'm a huge fan of supplements. I mean, I take them all the time, but I didn't want the industry to get abused like the pharmaceutical business has been abused. So we elevated the standards. We bring double-blind human clinical trials with our finished formulation. So what's happening is we did a double-blind human clinical trial on our actual formulation of these strains, where what you're seeing is borrowed science with a lot of these other strains. So you'll see a strain and they have borrowed science, and then they mix it with a whole bunch of different strains, and you don't know what happens. You don't know how it's going to affect the body. One of our products, called Just Calm, is a psychobiotic strain, and that strain actually has 8 clinical trials behind it. We mixed it. It was a bifidolongum 1714 strain. We mixed that strain with another bifidolongum strain, and all of the positive impacts that the strain alone had were negated when you mixed it with another strain. And so that's where I think we're coming in the probiotic space. Is I'm just, really pushing for probiotics to do studies on their finished formulation, see how they are affecting people, how they're affecting the human body, rather than just taking borrowed science.
I also think it's just very important to stress, and this is something, because I'm coming from one of these kind of skeptical backgrounds, that I think when people see something like this and they hear a word in the culture, in their brain, and this was where my mind usually goes, they think, oh, this is basically homeopathy. It's not at all. This is not some kind of weird like alchemy, like, oh, if you just have this crystal on your table, your stomach's going to feel better. This is something that is based on evolutionary science. This isn't some weird, fad of the moment. This is something that is just natural, but works in ways that, make sense to people once you think about it. Are there any downsides to taking probiotics?
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I can't imagine anybody that shouldn't be taking care of their gut microbiome. I mean, we know now, to your point, we know now the gut is responsible for virtually every aspect of our overall health. We all think, oh, I have digestive issues. Like you talked about Crohn's, or maybe people have gas or bloating or diarrhea or acid reflux, constipation, whatever it might be. People associate, oh, I must have some gut dysbiosis, or I must have a gut problem. Well, but really now what we know is that mental health issues are associated with our gut. 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut, which is our happy hormone. GABA is produced in our gut. Dopamine is produced in our gut. All of these important neurotransmitters are being produced in our gut. Autoimmune issues. If you have an autoimmune issue, you have a leaky gut. You have a gut that's leaking and toxins are seeping into your bloodstream. Diabetes, heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis. It's hard to find any non-communicable disease that's not associated with some type of imbalance in the gut. And so that's why I'm so passionate about getting people to start with your gut health. Whatever, there are other things besides taking our product to be helping you with your gut health, but we need to be supporting our gut health, because if our gut is inflamed, it's not absorbing nutrients. It just isn't. You could be eating the healthiest food that you want to eat, and that will contribute to, helping support your gut health. But you can be taking vitamin C and vitamin D, and all those things are super important. But if your gut is inflamed, it's just not absorbing the nutrients that we need.
By the way, if anyone who's listening to this is a guy, I highly recommend you take magnesium. It's $5. I get the jar from Target, the white jar. Try it. It affects your mental health profoundly. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Worst case, you're out $5, but I'm telling you, it's something that every guy has a shortage of and should take. And that's something I swear by.
I agree.
That's probably number one for males is to take magnesium.
I would argue for females as well. 90% of the population is deficient in magnesium. So
but it's also something that it's not just a minor thing. Like when you start taking it again, you're going to immediately it's kind of like it's the equivalent of, if I'm drinking 4 beers a day, I'm going to feel it. So if I have that in a negative way, if I have that magnesium, it's positive in the other sense. You're going to see the difference. This is not going to be all psychological or on the margins. It's going to be like, oh crap, I'm not low energy. I'm just low in magnesium. I'm not having, low mental health or a bad mood. It's I'm magnesium deficient. And it's really kind of, I feel like there's so little discussion in public discourse about how much stuff like this affects your mental health and day to day, because we seem to think that if you just talk about certain issues and have a good approach to life, you're going to be happy and not deal with depression and anxiety. And so much of that is based on stomach issues and supplement issues. And again, if you think about how you feel when you're hungover, you feel awful, right? Mm-hmm. This is the inverse. If you have a healthy functioning approach to food, if you have the right supplements, you'll be amazed how much better you feel as a person.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how it's all tied together. And it's why you're seeing, we have dysfunctional guts as a society. 60% of the American, the U.S. population has one chronic condition, and 40% has multiple chronic conditions. And so we're dealing with this epidemic of people having chronic conditions. And yet the pharmaceuticals are, at an all-time high. People are buying, on tons of meds, and they're not getting better. Cholesterol meds have never been higher, and heart disease has never been higher. And so, something's not working here. And so we have to be focusing on, I feel strongly, and it's not just me, it's the research is showing us that the gut, it was responsible for virtually all of our health. And, if you go to Google and you say, gut health and acid reflux, there's articles and studies on it. If you go gut health and rheumatoid arthritis, there's studies on it. Gut health and mental health, there's studies on it. There is a connection with your gut health with virtually every disease out there.
This kind of triggers me a lot because there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, whatever. The idea that if you have bad cholesterol, the first approach is going to be take a pill perpetually for the rest of your life, instead of just play around with what you eat. Just give it do some kind of elimination diet, right? Mm-hmm. Try to cut out sugars for a week, or try to cut out dairy. and figure out what it is that's making cholesterol higher. Because first of all, any pill that you're going to be on perpetually is going to have lose its efficacy. Second of all, it's just, are there going to be side effects? Your body's going to start relying on it. Whereas it doesn't have to be that way. And that, just to your point, what you're speaking on earlier, it just drives me crazy how so many of these conditions that people have, the answer is just throw more pills at it. And these are not like weak medications. These are often like really strong. What's the one? It starts with an X, that for stomach acid. A friend of mine was on it, and it was just like, maybe don't eat so much, like don't drink so much soda, or don't eat so much sugar. Rather than, I forget what it was, but it was really strong, and you're just popping them like candy after a while, because it's just a little thing, you don't think about it, and it's just like, these are not. If you're taking a sledgehammer to your condition, you're still hitting yourself with a sledgehammer perpetually.
Yeah. And when you're like depleting your stomach acid, I mean, our stomach acid is there for a reason. It's meant to be the gastric barrier. I mean, it creates all other kinds of issues going on. And so that's what's so hard, is like, it's not just that. I mean, these are dangerous things. These over-the-counter meds, our pharmaceuticals, they could be very dangerous. And I think that I always say, like, side effects include, with our products are like better mood, greater energy, like better sleep, and we're at better weight management. But, side effects in the pharmaceutical industry, or some of these over the counters, are like, suicidal thoughts, bloody stools, like horrible side effects. And it is funny that people will be resistant to it, and they think that it won't work. And I'm telling you, like, the magic starts to happen when you start to heal your gut. And whatever way people want to, it's just when you start to heal your gut, magic starts happening. And you are a perfect example of that, Michael.
Can you explain to me how the probiotics are helping my nephew? Like, what is actually literally happening?
Yes. So what they do is they get into the stomach. I mean, they go through your body, and then they hit the intestines. And when they get to the intestines, they're actually getting rid of some of the pathogenic bacteria.
Okay.
So but they're also, at least I could speak to ours, they're going in and helping our good bacteria come back to life. So I love to use just a very elementary example of a garden. So if you kind of compare the garden to your intestines, you've got the weeds in the garden, and you have the, plants in there, but the plants have been stepped on and trampled on. They're not flourishing in the garden. Our strains go in there.
You mean they're not thriving?
They're not thriving in the garden.
Okay.
So the bad plants are not, the weeds are overgrown, and the good plants are not thriving in the garden. And so our strains, or the strains, what you want a probiotic to do, to go in there and actually help get rid of the weeds in the garden, and then also help our good plants come back to life. And so that's what they're doing. They're actually making that garden more lush, and they're getting rid of that overgrowth. And that's the key. You don't want to you don't want to get rid of all the bad bacteria. It's an ecosystem, our gut. And we just want to help balance it out so that the beneficial bacteria is outweighing the pathogenic bacteria.
Folks, let's face it, life can be stressful, it can be overwhelming, and it's not just your mind that suffers when you're feeling tense and anxious. Stress can make a mess of your digestion and immune system too, but here's the thing, you can handle it. Introducing Just Calm, it's the breakthrough new stress-busting formula from Just Thrive. Say goodbye to frazzled nerves, say hello to a steady, chill, more relaxed you. Just Calm's exclusive mood-lifting blend is clinically proven to help you relax and breathe a little easier in as little as 4 weeks. And for next-level mood and immune support, give the award-winning Just Thrive probiotic a try, as I'm doing and am reaping the benefits. It not only has 1,000 times better survivability than most probiotics, but this spore probiotic banishes bloat and constipation, so your gut can produce more serotonin, which is your happy hormone. Plus, it supports better sleep. You can wake up feeling refreshed and revitalized. With Just Calm and Just Thrive probiotic, you'll have the ultimate stress-fighting duo to help you win the day, every day, and all with a money-back guarantee. What do you have to lose? For a limited time, you can try Just Thrive risk-free. You can save 20% off a 90-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic and Just Calm when you go to justthrivehealth.com and use promo code WELCOME. That's like getting a month for free with a money-back guarantee, and a portion of every purchase goes to Vitamin Angels, which is a nonprofit organization that saves the lives of millions of children and moms-to-be around the world by ensuring they get the vitamins and minerals they need to stay healthy and strong. So take control today with Just Thrive, and let's get back to my interview with Tina, the CEO of Just Thrive. Okay, so I take a some Just Thrive right now, right? How long does it take for the good bacteria to take root, and what's like the growth rate? Like when can I expect to go to like a normal level?
Yeah. So we have several studies. Obviously, everyone's individual, but the study that we did on leaky gut was a 30-day study. And this was done with healthy college students. 55% of them had a leaky gut and didn't know it. That's very detrimental. We know leaky gut is like the number one driver of most chronic conditions out there. 55% of the college students had it. We divided
Because
them.
here's the thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if it's something you've had all your life, you don't think anything's wrong.
Right.
Because you think this is just my normal. You don't realize that you don't have to be like this. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And it's also like a drippy faucet. Like some people don't have any, they have no symptoms. And then one day that drippy faucet just overflows and then all of a sudden they have an autoimmune disease or they have allergies or, whatever. They have they have anxiety or depression, whatever it might be. So that study was done and it showed that after 30 days, it showed a reduction in LPS toxins, which are the toxins that are in your gut.
What's LPS stand for?
Lipopolysaccharides. So lipopolysaccharide toxins aren't really problematic when they're in your gut. It's when they seep into the bloodstream that they become very problematic.
Okay.
We saw a 42% reduction with these spores after 30 days of being on the product. These are college students. There were no other dietary or lifestyle modifications. Of course, no other medicine, nothing like that. And saw a 42% reduction with these of these LPS toxins. But here's the scary part. The placebo group, the group that didn't get the spores, they saw a 32% increase in LPS toxins. So what that's telling us is, like I just talked about, that drippy faucet. Everyone thinks they're fine. They have I could eat a pizza or I could eat anything and I'm fine. And then one day it just overflows. And then you start this LPS toxins, they start creating this chronic inflammatory response by your body, and that's where disease comes from. And it's virtually every disease out there. I mean, it's hard to find any non-communicable disease that's not associated with an imbalance in our gut.
But also, think about it, because literally the stomach we're not plants, right? The stomach is the source of all our nutrition, or not the source, but that's the process. So if you're going to be affecting that kind of digestive system, meaning your input of nutrients, of course, nutrients affect literally every aspect of our body. Every circulatory system, respiratory system, every system is based on nutrition. We're not, other than vitamin D from sunlight. Everything else is coming through what we eat.
Right, exactly. And our immune system is in our gut. 80% of our immune system. Our immune cells would cease to function if we have a dysfunctional gut, and this is why we're seeing people with so many immune issues.
Or you're going to have the immune response. So you're going to have a light fever, or just basically at a certain point your body is going to run out of energy because it's constantly fighting this inflammation.
Right, exactly.
Can you talk, so is probiotics something people should stay on perpetually? Is this the kind of thing where you could take it once and you're set? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people ask me that. And I feel like we are living in a world that's so offensive to our gut health. One of the biggest offenders are antibiotics, and not just antibiotics. We kind of have now learned that we shouldn't be taking antibiotics all the time. The CDC actually came out with a study to show that 50% of antibiotics are actually unnecessary that are prescribed. And some of that is due to the doctor's fault, and some of it's the patient's just pushing for an antibiotic. But
aren't they also kind of like nuking a hand nail?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you have something mild, just throw something really strong at it. It's just like, it will work, but there's a cost.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like if you have like a neighborhood filled with 50 houses and you find out that one has mold in it, and you just get rid of all the houses in the neighborhood. It's like that's what it's doing. And then even worse is if you have a viral infection. Now you have a virus, and the antibiotic's not going to do anything for that viral infection. We only want antibiotics for bacterial infections. And so now you've taken an antibiotic that's now making your gut less functional, and that's where 80% of your immune system is. So it's actually, worsening your ability to fight off a virus. So we live in this world, antibiotics so offensive to our gut health. Of course, I know sometimes antibiotics save lives and sometimes people need to be on them, but we definitely want to avoid them as much as possible. We know antibiotics are found in our animal products and our food supply, so we have to be aware of that. Pesticides that are sprayed all over our food supply, our produce, Roundup is, of course, the main ingredient is glyphosate. It's very disruptive to our gut health. All the antibacterial hand soaps and sanitizers that I mentioned earlier, household cleaning products, all these, that say kills 99.99% of the bacteria, actually have households with children with a greater incidence of allergies and asthma, because we know that these microbes we're killing off our good bacteria. So I feel like we should always be taking care of our gut health because it is being attacked on a daily basis. So, even if somebody comes to the product on maybe just to deal with an issue, maybe stay on it one a day. It's super easy, just one a day with food. Take it one a day. But then after a while, maybe 3 months or so, that's after where you start to see the magic. After 3 months, now you start to see, like maybe initially you might start seeing some benefits with, whatever maybe it was gas or bloating or diarrhea, constipation. But then, after a couple months, you start to see, God, I'm in a better mood, or I have more energy.
I had results immediately. I couldn't believe it. If I didn't have the results immediately, I would have thought it was psychosomatic. Because it's just like, if something's gradual, you're like, is it it's working? It's like when you're in college, is it working? But then but the fact that I could eat the same thing that like a month before and not be set off with like an hour discomfort, bathroom trips, I was like, holy crap, this stuff is real.
Yeah, it is. And we see that a lot also. But I never want someone to get discouraged because some people takes a little bit longer, But again, it's all the side effects, the positive side effects that you start to notice. That's what I was saying, like after a couple months. Because when you think about it, if you start going to the bathroom regularly, you start getting rid of toxins that you don't have. So people start to lose a little bit of weight. They start to have more energy.
Well, so you don't have the bloat in your stomach all the time, right?
Yes, exactly. You don't have any of that stuff. So it's like all these, you just start feeling better, and it's really exciting. And so that's why we'd say, even if you stay on it one a day for maybe 3 months, but then eventually you could go to a maintenance dose, maybe one every other day, maybe one every third day. But I would argue that it's really critical to continue to be taking care of your gut on a regular basis. And there are other ways, like I said, to take care of your gut. You could be, try to eat less processed foods, staying away from sugar and alcohol, all the things that we know. I mean, processed foods are very detrimental to our gut health. Doing things like things to calm you down, bringing your cortisol level down. That sounds really woo-woo out there. That why would that matter? I tell people to meditate all the time, but there is a connection between your gut and your brain, and they send signals back and forth to each other all the time. And so that's another tool that you could use in your toolbox. But as far as the product, I would say just, you could do it one a day, but then eventually go to a maintenance dose.
And if people are skeptical that the gut and the brain communicate, ask yourself how much your personality changes when you're hungry.
Yeah.
Right? Like when your motivations, and when you're really hungry.
Yes.
And then see who's in charge at that moment.
Yeah.
Like, is it the brain or is it the gut?
Exactly.
It's very, very clear.
Or if you have butterflies in your stomach,
you
have butterflies in your stomach when you're excited. That's your brain and gut talking to each other. And, or you are really nervous about something, you have to go to the bathroom. I mean, it's very, very clear that there's a huge gut-brain connection.
This is something that has such a profound effect on me. And I'm sure this is going to ring a bell with a lot of listeners, because I still hate cheese, right? And part of the reason I hate cheese is because when I was a kid, if I ever ate like really fatty, high-fat food like cheese, it would trigger an attack. So I just had this kind of like visceral correlation on a subconscious level. If I eat this now, then in an hour I'm going to be uncomfortable. And even though that's no longer the case and I can't eat cheese or something like that, it's still like Pavlov, I've been trained to that extent. So it's just really, I think if people are listening to this and you have some adversarial relationships with certain foods, and you just think, I don't like it, maybe it's not that you don't like it, it's maybe that your brain trained you that you can't have it, because whenever you have it, your body doesn't process it well. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and that's even more evidence of the gut-brain connection.
Yeah.
It's because your body your brain is telling you that you don't want that food anymore. But I love that you can recognize that you could tolerate the cheese again. It's just that you're choosing not to. And I think that's what I always love to stress to people. Is people say, well, I feel fine as long as I don't eat, broccoli, or I feel fine as long as I don't eat this. I mean, my goal is to get you to eat as many foods as possible. That we want a diverse microbiome. Our goal is to have a diverse microbiome. I mean, we live in this world where you're vegan, paleo, carnivore, whatever it might be. And I'm more of the opinion is eat a diverse group of foods, because that's going to create more diversity in your gut. And so my goal is that once you start to heal your gut, once you start to fix your gut by all the different modalities out there, you will be able to start introducing foods back into your diet.
I'll tell you a story that I told when I was on Rogan, and people have heard, but I think about this all the time because I'm still traumatized, and I know I'm never going to be able to stop it. I was at one of those buffets in Manhattan, and I was eating steak, and I started choking on it. It was the first time in my life I ever choked. And it was a very weird sensation, because my brain, I remember, very consciously said, there's a non-zero chance you're going to die. So you really need to look at this right now. And I kept myself calm, and I couldn't tell which pipe it was. So I don't know if I need to swallow or push it up. And I'm like, okay, like clock's ticking.
Yeah.
And you need to figure this out. So I did what they have on all the signs in the restaurant. There was a table of tourists in their 50s, I'd say, 4 of them. And I went up to them and I did the universal sign of choking. And they all looked at me with blank expression, like no, like.
Wow.
And in retrospect, I'm still extremely angry because at the very least, a crazy person has come up to your table and is doing this.
Exactly,
so he's at least threatening you,
Right.
And I decided to like try to like almost puke, but it shot out. And they're like, "Oh, you should chew more carefully." Yeah, no shit.
Oh my God.
But point is now. Every time or almost, and I don't think about that. This happened several years ago, but every time I'm eating steak, and I have that trigger.
Yeah.
And my body has just been trained for and I bet you this is how it works when some animal eats like a poisonous butterfly or something like that. From then on, whenever it sees that color, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going through that experience again.
No, exactly. And it's the gut talking or the brain talking to the gut.
Yes, it was very, very
Oh, I'm sorry that
I
you
know.
went through
I'm
that.
sorry too, because I love steak, but every time I get like this jolt of adrenaline.
Oh, I would. I think I'm going to have a jolt of adrenaline now that you told me that story.
If I could find those people, I would punch them all in the face, the
I
women
know.
included. What is wrong with you?
I know. What is wrong?
Okay.
I know.
So you also have some new product that you're launching that I want to talk about as well.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So we are a gut health company. That is our passion. That is where we started. And that's what we're mostly, we're super excited about. We know that, like I mentioned, serotonin and all these neurotransmitters are being produced in our gut. And that is super important. And we know that we need to take care of our gut to help with our brain health.
Wait, talk about what serotonin is, because it's something extremely important.
Yeah. Serotonin is our happy hormone.
Yeah.
And 90% of it is produced in our gut, not in our brain like we thought. Is 90% of it is in our gut. And so that when you're talking about brain health, you want to focus on your gut. And that's what our probiotic, we've talked about this for years about how you need to take care of your gut to take care of your serotonin and your brain health. And we also know those LPS toxins that we were talking about that seep in when you have leaky gut, when those LPS toxins seep into your bloodstream, they're creating this inflammatory response going to your brain. That's one of the major drivers of brain inflammation are those LPS toxins. So we feel that the probiotic is really foundational when it comes to brain health. However, we have seen this rise in a need for focus and memory with people with in this world. We see this shortage of Adderall out there, the overprescribing of Adderall out there, the black market for Adderall. People are craving attention. They need to improve their focus. We have so much wear and tear in our brain right now. We did not evolve with smartphones where we have this one little device that takes us to 1,000 different places in a matter of minutes. Our attention span years ago used to be, 2.5 minutes long. Now it's less than 40 seconds. And so we developed a product that is called Focus and Memory. So it's a natural product that is focusing on just focus and memory, where we want to, what's the word I'm looking for? We want to regenerate our brain cells, and one of the ingredients in our product is called Cognitique, and that ingredient actually increases BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factors, and that helps regrow brain cells. So, we feel that the gut is the most important organ we should be focusing on, and that obviously the brain is the second most important organ that we should be focusing on. And we take collagen for skin, we take like liver supplements when we're out drinking one night, but people aren't taking supplements to be supporting their brain health. And yet it's not only is it important for our day-to-day function, but it's being really worn down more than ever, and we're seeing this lack of focus in people.
I think people fail. This is similar to the gut health issue. People who have had issues with serotonin think that, oh, I suck, or my life's not where I want it to be. It's like, no. Mm-hmm. You have a deficiency, and your mind is translating that deficiency into verbal, articulate thoughts. But if your serotonin and other factors were a more harmonious level, you wouldn't be having this disordered thinking.
Right.
You'd be much more content and much more motivated to improve, or at least content where you are now, instead of being in this loop, which is so much a function of hormones and chemicals in the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And we feel like we're blaming ourselves for not having this motivation, but yet we're switching tasks like crazy on a day-to-day basis. And our brain didn't evolve to be allowing us to be switching tasks as much as we are. And it's not it's not our character. It's the fact that we are not taking care of our brains. I mean, we're not doing anything to regrow brain cells and the neurons, and that's really what the product was
and
focused
that's
on.
the other thing. Like, talk about Adderall. It's like, talk about it. I've had friends who tried to withdraw from it, and it's no joke. I mean, once it has its hooks in you, it stays in there. So that's one of those things that we were talking about earlier. It's that when someone has an issue, like, I want to, succeed at work, I want to do good at school, I want to be able to stay up all night, do this paper. Yeah, you're going to get through it in the short term. And I'm sure like doing lines of blow is going to do that in the short term.
Yeah,
what's
it's
that
not
going
much
to do?
different. Yeah.
Right. It's speed. Adderall is speed, right?
Yes, it's a speed.
Right.
It's an amphetamine.
So
exactly.
just like crystal meth. Now imagine what's going to happen to you in 3 years. Like, people think because it comes in a nice jar from the pharmacy and it got
our doctor prescribed
and your doctor
it.
prescribed it. Oh, therefore it's completely different and not like those people over there. It's like, guys, this is the same. It's a very similar drug, and you know very well what happens when you stay on these hardcore drugs for many, many years. It's not pretty.
No, it's not pretty, and it's so sad to see the kids. I'm a mother of 3. I see this with kids all the time that are college students that are taking it.
But it's also little boys who aren't meant to be sitting still for 8 hours a day.
Exactly.
Let's give them or Ritalin. It's just crazy to me.
It is. It's crazy. And this is certainly not going to be a replacement for any of those drugs, because I wouldn't want anybody on legal speed anyway.
Right.
But this is it's a natural way that's effective to be I would rather have a child be on this than have them be on, Adderall or Ritalin. Not that it's a replacement. So.
But it's also the idea of like, why are you going straight to 10?
Yes.
When if you let's try the gradual approach first. And if that doesn't work, there's some people where you need some kind of strong intervention. You have to go the hardcore stuff. But the idea that everyone has to be taking the maximum dosage and the most efficacious, but the more efficacious something is medically, it's going to tend to have side effects and other consequences, because the human body and all the systems within our bodies are so interrelated.
Right. No, exactly. And it's like, this is why one of the core values of our company is just empowerment. It doesn't matter to me if you want to take our product, if you want to take another one, but just empower yourself to understand. Don't just listen to your doctor, what they say. Like, ask for certain blood work that you want. Like, empower yourself to understand you are the CEO of your own health. And it sounds so cliche, but I'm so passionate about that, and why we invest in our blogs, and we do research on a lot of our blogs, or most of our blogs, because it's like, I'm so passionate about people just taking control of their health and not just listening to the doctors. I mean, doctors are not ill-willed. I don't think they're out there to hurt people. It's just that they're educated by big pharma. For the most part, most medical schools get a lot of funding from big pharma, and this is what they're learning, and it's disheartening to me. And we have that Marcus Welby. I'm old enough to, for those of you listening that know who Marcus Welby is, it's like everyone thought Marcus Welby was God, and that's how we think of doctors, is like they're God. And I'm just asking that people take matters into their own hands and take control of your health.
Yeah, I don't think people listening to this show have to have that opinion anymore, certainly, about the medical community. Right. And it's also, a lot of times that doctor is going to be seeing 50 people a day, and he knows if he just does this, he'll be rid of you, and he won't have to think about it anymore. So the incentive structure is not there in a positive way. Tina, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Oh my gosh. When you yelled at me about not saying thriving, instead I said flourishing instead of thriving.
You are welcome. This episode was brought to you by Just Thrive. Save 20% off a 90-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic and Just Calm when you go to justthrivehealth.com and use promo code WELCOME.